Picture this. You walk through your front door after a long, exhausting day, only to step right into a giant puddle stretching across your entire living room. Yeah, a pipe burst. The water's rising. Now, in a high-stakes scenario like a flooded home, your natural first reaction is probably going to be panic. But in the world of professional restoration, when water invades, every single minute counts. Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to dive into the absolutely fascinating, high-stakes science of water damage restoration, and we'll be using the incredibly detailed protocols from Fortress Water Damage Restoration out in Sacramento as our guide.
So, what exactly happens when your home actually starts taking on water? You know, it's really tempting to just think of a flood as this giant spill that you just need to mop up. But honestly, the truth is so much more complex. Water is this invisible, incredibly fast-moving enemy. It seeps right into places you can't even see, literally altering the physical structure of your home. Defeating it takes a rapid, highly scientific response. We're talking physics, chemistry, and precise timing, not just a bucket and some old towels.
Here is our blueprint for today. We're going to cover the anatomy of damage, local risks, the categories of water, the science of drying, the restoration process, and finally, the overall recovery timeline. All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the anatomy of water damage. The absolute critical number here is 60 minutes. According to our source, this is the strict emergency dispatch window used by pro teams like Fortress. Why just 1 hour? Well, because water spreads by the minute. By getting there within 60 minutes with those massive truck-mounted extraction units, technicians can literally stop water migration right in its tracks. They are pulling hundreds of gallons of standing water out of carpets and hard floors almost instantly. And that rapid response, that is the crucial difference between a minor, totally manageable repair and a major, incredibly expensive reconstruction.
And here is exactly why that speed matters so much. 24 to 48 hours, that is your absolute limit. If that trapped moisture isn't dealt with immediately, within just a day or two, it's inevitably going to breed mold and start causing permanent structural rot. No joke. Mold spores absolutely thrive in those moist indoor environments, and your home's wood framing will actually begin to compromise. So the clock starts ticking the very second that water hits the floor. Moving right along to Section 2, local risks and hidden threats.
You see, local conditions can actually turn a heavy rainfall or an aging pipe into a sudden indoor disaster. Take Rocklin, for example. The area has these clay-heavy soils that really prevent proper drainage, which means winter storm runoff goes straight toward house foundations. And on top of that, a ton of homes there were built during the 1990s construction boom using builder-grade plumbing. We are talking copper pipes that corrode from mineral-rich groundwater and polybutylene lines that just fail without any warning at all. They split right along the seams and can flood a room in minutes. Throw in the spring snowmelt from the American River watershed, which ramps up the heavy underground hydrostatic pressure pushing against slab foundations, and man, you've got a literal perfect storm of local risks.
Which brings us to Section 3, the 3 categories of water.
So a massive part of this is how we actually classify the threat. The Institute of Inspection, Cleaning and Restoration Certification, or the IICRC for short, defines 3 very distinct categories. Category 1 is clean water. Think a burst supply line or just clean rainwater. This stuff can usually just be extracted and dried out. Then you have Category 2, which is gray water. This contains contaminants, like a dishwasher discharging or a toilet overflowing with urine. This definitely requires antimicrobial treatment. But Category 3? Oh boy, that's black water. We're talking raw sewage, river flooding, or even just Category 1 water that's been sitting stagnant for more than 48 hours. Category 3 absolutely demands the complete removal of porous materials like drywall and carpets simply because they cannot be adequately sanitized from that level of gross contamination. No way around it.
All right, Section 4, the science of structural drying.
Now, you might think drying a room just means pointing a big box fan at a wet spot, right? But it's actually governed by a highly specific field of science called psychrometry. Professionals meticulously measure the exact temperature, the relative humidity, and the grains per pound of moisture in the air to calculate vapor pressure and evaporation potential. So they aren't just taking wild guesses here. They use this exact math to figure out precisely how much low-grain refrigerant dehumidifier capacity they need and exactly where to place high-velocity air movers to physically pull that moisture right out of the building materials.
Let's look at how this physics actually plays out with different materials, because water behaves totally differently depending on what it touches. Drywall, for instance, is incredibly porous. Its gypsum core acts like a sponge, rapidly wicking water vertically.
It can creep up to 24 inches above the actual water line. Concrete, on the flip side, is super dense. It might seem perfectly solid, but it can actually hold unseen moisture for weeks. This creates a hidden breeding ground for mold and causes mineral salts to literally push through the surface, a lovely little issue known as efflorescence. So the most dangerous moisture isn't that visible puddle on the floor. It's the unseen water trapped behind your walls or buried under solid slabs.
Next up, Section 5, the professional restoration process.
This perfectly leads us to a crucial industry concept called dry standards. Basically, a home is not considered dry just because it feels dry to the touch. Technicians are out there using calibrated moisture meters and thermal imaging cameras to track precise percentages. For example, wood framing absolutely must be brought down to below 15% moisture content. Concrete? That has to be forced below just 1%. And daily monitoring is required until these exact mathematical standards are met, which completely takes the guesswork out of the equation.
To actually hit those strict standards, professionals follow 3 proven steps. Step 1 is emergency extraction, basically getting rid of the bulk standing water using those massive truck-mounted pumps. Step 2 is structural drying. This is where they set up containment barriers to really isolate the affected areas, and then they blast it with industrial dehumidification power. Finally, step 3 is final testing and restoration. This ensures every single material passes that dry standard before the physical reconstruction brings the property all the way back to its pre-loss condition.
I absolutely love this quote from the source material because it just perfectly captures the high stakes. It says, "We monitor daily until materials return to dry standard, preventing secondary damage and mold growth that turn a water emergency into a months-long reconstruction project." That data-driven daily monitoring, that is the ultimate safety net. It's what stops hidden rot from quietly destroying your home long after that initial flood is gone.
Let's round things out with Section 6, insurance and final recovery.
This timeline really brings our entire ticking clock narrative together. So within 60 minutes, the emergency dispatcher arrives to stop the spread. From there, you have a tight 24 to 48-hour window to beat the mold. And thanks to that wild science of psychrometry we just talked about, the complete structural drying phase takes a rapid 3 to 5 days. After that, the broader reconstruction takes about 1 to 2 weeks. So you can see how a potentially massive disaster is methodically contained and resolved through a highly structured, scientifically managed timeline.
But hey, what about the cost, right? Dealing with insurance can seriously be a nightmare, but the restoration industry has actually standardized this part too. Most homeowner policies do cover sudden and accidental damage, like a burst pipe. Restoration companies use specific industry software, like Xactimate, to create incredibly detailed loss documentation. Because they are providing those daily, itemized moisture logs and thermal imaging photos we discussed earlier, they can coordinate directly with the carriers. They basically hand over the undeniable scientific proof that insurance adjusters need, which really eliminates those frustrating disputes over the required work.
Well, we've seen how water moves, the local risks that cause it, the intense science used to dry it out, and the rigorous process these professionals follow. It truly is a precise, high-stakes battle against an invisible enemy. So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought. If a pipe bursts behind your wall right now, knowing how fast water wicks and how quickly mold grows, are you prepared to beat the ticking clock? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this helped pull back the curtain on the amazing science of water damage restoration. Keep learning, and I'll see you on the next one.